everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast. This is episode 39, and today we're having a special here at Nordic Game Conference. Yet again, this is a second interview, so this is sponsored by the Nordic Game Conference, as I'm presented with this amazing little meeting room here to have this podcast in for the first time. I'm just super excited for this. And together with me on this occasion is none other than Razvan Kim. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Not too bad. Had a good morning, had a good breakfast. Just came from the composer panel, which you can probably watch online. It went well.
Is it available for everybody or just
it's available for everybody.
Yeah. Most likely I will then make a link or something like that. So
absolutely.
In the comment section, or not comment section, but in the main post at videospelsklubben.se, you will find a link.
Down below.
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 We're really serious about this. You can tell already.
Oh, absolutely. My middle name.
Yeah, this is such an amazing time as well that we're living in. For me to have a new podcast environment and setup, so I can do this kind of things. It's like having you in front of me is like a dream coming true. I mean, we've been talking about this for such a long time. It's like before we started recording, we talked about it was 3 years ago when was that the first time we actually met as well?
The first time we met, yeah.
It was in Copenhagen, running around doing random shenanigans.
It was November 2021.
God damn, you have a memory. I don't remember dates and anything.
I don't remember what happened there, but I remember meeting you, and we were playing this drinking game. And then nothing else.
After that, it's just a blur.
Everything's just a blur. I think you beat me at it.
Oh my god. It's not a competition though. Anyway, so today we're going to talk a little bit about you. You are a composer.
Amongst other things, yeah.
Amongst other things, yeah. But first of all, a little bit more about you. Where do you come from, and what made you get into composing?
So I was born in Transylvania. That's Romania, western part of Romania, and I'm half North Korean descent. And I think I've been playing music for as long as I can remember, kind of. I come from a ragingly working class background, so the only time I could afford buying a guitar was 16. Oh. And it all kind of stemmed from that, and it all turned into a downward spiral, which led me to here.
This is the low point?
Well, no, it can spiral up.
You're taking charge right now, being down here. So,
it's probably better way to describe it would be a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up.
Yeah, but always fast.
Always fast. That's why you have this amazing hair.
I know.
It's like the wind always in it.
Not very aerodynamic though.
Yeah. It's like the best podcast talking about hair now.
Shave my legs.
Yeah, but working class and everything, it took some time for you to get your first instrument and so on. Did you have a passion for music early on that made you save all the money until the age of 16?
Oh, absolutely. Almost to an obsessive kind of state.
When did it start around? This obsessive
I actually
state?
have some memories when I was about 3 years old. We had this tape of Engelbert Humperdinck. Do you remember Engelbert Humperdinck?
I do not.
Right. Please release me, let me go. That's the guy.
Okay,
So we had this tape with this pink cover, and every road trip we took, someone would ask, my mom would ask, well, okay, what tapes are we taking for the road trip? And I was like, got it out of the pocket, Engelbert Humperdinck, come on. And at a certain point, it's gotten so bad that they had to hide it from me because no one wanted to listen to that for the umpteenth thousand time. So that I guess that's my first obsession, kind of.
But it sounds like it's still better than Baby Shark, apparently.
Oh, well, I don't know. We'll see in 20 years.
Somebody's obsessed with it. Baby Shark.
We'll see how they turn out.
Yeah. Roller coaster kids.
Yeah, I know.
Roller coaster generation. Since we were so much about generations. No, but considering that you started out getting your own guitar when you were 16. 16 is like, usually people can have music classes and so on. They have a chance to have some sort of instrument in school, etc. But 16, you're almost out of school.
Yeah, no, actually in Romania we didn't have music in school.
Okay.
So music in school was an absolute joke. We never had that. We were never provided instruments. So it was never regarded as a profession in that sense, unless you did it, like you went to a vocational school, which, taught instruments and so forth. But yeah, that's the thing. So it was more regarded as a hobby, as more than anything. So after I finished my A levels after high school and I got into university studying mechanical engineering, I was like, am I gonna be here 6 years from now doing physics and chemistry and maths? And I'm like, actually, I'm just gonna go the other way. After 3 months, I just took my resigned. How do you call it? Just took my file out of the university and started doing music aimlessly. And yeah. So where it take me,
Yeah. And where did it take you? Like from that point in time?
Yeah. It
like,
took me.
What was the next step, considering that you wanted to put more time into music? When you're like, oh no, I don't want to do physics and everything. That's super cool in NASA style.
Afterwards, I moved to Hamburg, and reality soon hit after I had a residency in Gameable, which they were kind enough to give me a space to live for the first half year. And afterwards, reality hit, and I was met with it and met with the concept of, hey, you need to make money to pay your rent and to eat. So busking wasn't really an option. So I went into cooking school. So I was a chef for ages.
Yeah. So no music, going into cooking.
Yeah. So it became a hobby at that stage. But afterwards, the pandemic hit, and funnily enough, I was in a state that when you're so deep doing something that you just can't go out. It's your comfort zone, and you can't just get away from it. And so during the pandemic, they told me to stay at home, and I started manically composing. And that's when it all started out, and all the latent knowledge I had gathered over the years and all the instruments I played just fell all together in this cesspool of...
But I remember a little bit, so if you pull back the time, like 1 year at least, I remember our friend Thor Myrdal, he actually had this virtual biz dev bar, and I know you visited this one from time to time. Not often, but from time to time you popped in. And I know we talked about you being a chef at that point in time, but at the same time you talked a lot about you playing guitar.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly now. So you still, even though you were in both in cooking school, but later as a cook, you still put a lot of time on your musical side, which was only a hobby.
Absolutely. I mean, hobby is just this, it's a weird thing to say. It's just like... I don't know, when you think about hobby, you think about, building a church out of matchsticks in your shed, probably. But it wasn't really a hobby in that sense for me. It was more like an outlet of, creativity and something that kept me sane over all these years, while having such a demanding and repetitive job, such a physically demanding job. To fall back on this outlet and... it was a beautiful thing. So I still use it as such.
So it's kind of was a meditative phase almost for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know from my own experience, not my own personal experience, but the experience of knowing people within the restaurant business. It's very hectic, it's very stressful, and so on. I mean, just looking at Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, it sounds crazy to be in restaurant business. So I understand the more sincere part of going back to something and feel a little bit more safe, meditative about being in a mind space where you actually want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So in consideration to that, putting a lot of time on this meditative part. Did you do mostly things for yourself in this point in time, or did you start recording something or publicly?
Yeah, I've released a couple of tracks which were at the time recorded through a karaoke microphone found in the basement, gaffer taped to the desk, and a very cheap guitar I just got out of eBay Kleinanzeigen in Hamburg, and was mostly improvisational, was mostly uncut, raw, undigested. These blobs of intense feeling, or whatever you felt at the time. So that's the beauty of having an outlet for creation. You let out your emotions and not analyze them, and just let them flow in their own accord.
Yeah. So it feels like you made the music for yourself to begin
Exactly.
with. So what made
More
you take
like,
the step to start recording then? Did you feel other needed to have to listen to the outlet and get the same serenity that you got by
That was
by
the
playing?
interesting thing, actually. It's good that you brought it up, because the way I work now is completely different. But I still retain some of that chaotic elements in myself and in my personality still. But obviously. My approach now is definitely a bit more manneristic in that sense, more calculated.
Manneristic is a new word for me. What does that mean?
More calculated,
Okay.
let's say. Yeah, a more calculated technical approach. As I actually had time to learn what a DAW exactly does and what everything works, and starting to get more into production.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing that changed with this transformation. Yeah.
So far, we haven't talked a lot about like video games in your life and so on, because that's usually what this podcast is about, the video game music. When did you start learning more about like music within video games, and that you can actually start composing for video games as well?
The part with composing, it just hit me out of the blue. I never thought I could do that. Maybe I had just severe imposter syndrome, and not even an into it. But I remember having this Sega Game Gear. Do you remember those?
Yeah. Handheld.
My
lot of
uncle,
batteries.
like 8
Yeah.
or something, or like 12.
And you can play like an hour at most.
I know,
and then
yeah. I had an adapter for it, which was great. It was like went into the plug socket, so it was fine. But so my uncle gave me that in the 90s, and I had one game for it, which was called Psychic World.
Psychic World.
Yeah, Psychic. I think so. Correct
Was it
me.
a good game?
It was all right.
Yeah.
It was kind of, in terms of gameplay mechanics, Mario style in a way, but you had a weapon and everything. But they had this introduction, which was absolutely phenomenal. And the song, I still remember it. I actually listened to it like 2 years ago. I really listened to it. It has this phenomenal soundtrack to it, which takes you through all these different emotions while showing you these cutscenes, presenting you the story and introducing you into the game. And it's still imprinted in my head, like because it was the only game I had. And in the 90s in Romania, you had no chance of buying any, not to mention legitimate copies, but, like Game Gear games? No, really, no. You only could find like...
It's not like the most common console for one to get.
Exactly.
To start with.
Yeah. I got it from abroad as well, so
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's it,
It's like it's one of a kind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the only games we had were like these knockoff NES games,
The
which were like
classics.
so cracked
the bootlegs.
and impossible to beat. Some of them, like these anti-cheats, these old anti-cheats, so insane. And I always thought at a certain point, I'm so bad at this. No, it was impossible.
So it started back like in the 90s then with Game Gear that you got into
Well, the first
understanding of video game music then?
first came the NES. Yeah, we had a cheap knockoff of NES.
Yep.
Everyone in Eastern Europe had it. The
But did you-
Russians have the Dendy.
Was it like the old, because it's very limited the amount of channels you have in those early consoles.
Yeah.
Was the music something that you felt was, oh, it sounds amazing right from the start, or was it something that grew on you over time?
It definitely something that grew on you because you associate it with that gameplay and the experience you have while playing the game. And they were quite rudimentary, but they did a good job back then at conveying the atmosphere of the game and something afterwards. You've been playing that for 2 hours straight. And then you're going away and you're like, like for ages afterwards, just stuck in your head. These like simple jingles, which absolutely worked. You know?
They needed to be like small and have like a good melody back in the day. Because
Absolutely.
First of all, the 4 channels, but at the same time, it's like, oh, how much space can I use on this? It's like, you get like 5 kilobytes. What?
No, but they did amazing jobs with what they had and the
Exactly.
technology and some innovative ways to actually make music with these MIDI kind of interfaces.
Exactly. But working with music today, do you feel like you want to challenge yourself with utilizing like these limitations as well at any point in time? Or do you feel like, oh, it's the modern time now, I can just smack in everything and doesn't matter. What 1 gigabyte soundtrack, let's go.
I mean, yeah.
Like considering where we were and where we're at today, I mean, it's 2 different worlds.
No, absolutely. I guess a lot of artists said the same thing, that it's very hard to keep focus in terms of creativity at the creative stage. It's very hard to keep focus because you have an abundance of tools and an abundance of sample libraries, which are close to perfect, So it's very hard to keep focus when you have a brief and you want to create something. It's very hard to keep focus and cherry pick exactly those elements which you want to use and which work within the context of your sonic piece. So, for example, I don't know. Forgot what I was going to say. Never. Moving on.
Yeah, but one thing that I find so fascinating is like you don't have anything like in your family and so on that kind of promoted musical instruments and so on. You were really thorough about it yourself, like going into music and finding that interest. So it feels like you've been struggling over time all the time. How do you feel that has formed you to who you are today? Do you feel like you have an impact due to how you grew up getting into music?
No, of course I had some degree of struggles, but also some degree of pampering. But the truth of the matter is I was sailing against a very strong wind for a very long time. Especially with my rudimentary setups and my rudimentary instruments. And, at a certain point, even on my old guitar, the bridge neck bit just broke, so I carved one out of wood. Because I couldn't find a replacement anywhere. So you know what I mean?
MacGyvered the shit out of it.
Yeah, something like that. It meant I couldn't play, so I was gonna do something about it. So of course some degree of struggle within that. But I think that instead of hindering me, I think it really helped shape who I am today in terms of how I approach a creative brief. And I use a lot of unconventional instruments, and I like to record instruments themselves because a sample library can never, it has no personality in the sense of it will always play exactly the same, exactly right, correct. It's no fluctuation, no emotion in that sense, no human error.
It becomes
element.
soulless.
Exactly. But the human error element is what becomes interesting. when mistakes appear and they actually sound good in context and they weren't calculated initially. So I think that's one of the key things that define me as an artist, without tooting my own horn.
Yeah. No, this is the best time where you can toot how much you want.
Toot, toot.
No, you're currently in the spotlight, so I mean, of course, talk from your own emotions, talk from how you feel, from your perspective. Because I believe, considering like when it comes to composers and so on, the most common thing you can do is like show your emotion through the music. But we who experience the pieces that the composers make, we never really know the struggle that went in behind them. So listening to something, we usually get drawn into the full experience as well, because, well, of course you can listen to a lot of music by itself today, but music was also added very quickly for the young generation into like something moving, something that is interactive with games and so on. So all of a sudden, it can either make it or break it with immersion, for example, for a movie. It's like if you're making a scary movie, but you're adding like a hillbilly soundtrack to it, it's not going to be scary. Yeah, exactly. and also if you're making like a video game and you have the wrong type of music for the experience, you're going to dislike the game.
Yeah, so, no, of course. It definitely has to fit, but... This is where the technicality comes in, because where you have to pair music and sound as a medium to a different element, like visual, a game, movies, or any sort of media, then you have to stay true to it. Of course, you add a different dimension to it, but also what you want is to suggest and support the visual element of that particular piece. So, yeah.
One thing that is also interesting, considering who you are and your travels that you've been going through, you have no real like teaching through school and so on with instruments and composition knowledge and theory. Is this something you learned on your free time, like buying books and so on, or have you gone full like rogue on your own and teaching by doing?
I do not own a single book about music theory or music in general, apart from some biographies.
Still have the cassette though with.
I still have cassettes. Yeah, I still have CDs as well. And,
with the old classics that you listened to when you were 3.
Absolutely, ABBA. I have an ABBA Gold as well, which is one of my prized possessions. But no. Sorry, what was the question?
so considering like you've been going through so many things, so considering that you haven't really done any school or have some classical...
of course. Yeah, no, I'm actually sorry about that. Brain rot. I'm completely self-taught, so I learn like that better if I get thrown into something, and I usually the struggle of finding your way out and kind of this adrenaline which is either a deadline breathing down your neck or something which needs to work and you need to make it work. That's when you learn best by doing. So that's how I learn. So that's how I always did it. So
learning through chaos is your like path of fire.
Kind of, yeah. I work best under pressure for some reason.
Could it be due to the fact that your background as a chef? Working with pressure all the time.
Oh wow! I never made that connection, but there you go. Case closed.
I mean, it could be one thing. I mean,
no, absolutely.
With a high stress tolerance as well. I mean, it could be a good fit as well, considering that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're so lacking with time and you don't have the time and space in order to iterate and get a good feel, you usually tend to go with your gut feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So considering when you do your compositions and so on, there are some within game development where, for example, I as a level designer, we use a technique called shotgunning. You're instead of making one big level, you're making like 3, 4, 5 small ones, and you can usually present all those and say, okay, which one do you like the most? Do you have something similar with composition for yourself, being self-taught? That do you go on your gut feeling so well that it works every time for some reason because you're like a natural due to this trial by fire over and over again? or do you like to present multiple versions of a song and then just try to see which one fits best?
I usually like to nail it down on the first try, in the sense of we have several meetings regarding this, and I get the general feel, and I also ask clients to not only describe the vibe they want to convey, but also give me references.
Yeah.
Reference tracks, which does not usually include video games. So even pop music elements, and you can throw in Wagner as well. You can always describe it better by showing. So when you take that and combine those elements with the brief, then it's kind of easy to not nail it, but definitely be going into the right direction, sonically at least.
Yep.
And the rest is just, oh, that's great. Okay, let's tweak it. Maybe leave the horns there. Like make them sound a bit more, something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah.
But considering this as well, right now we haven't really talked about how much different work you've been doing so far. So I think we can dive a little bit into that one. So considering from where you started and up till now, it's like if we talk specifically about video game music, like how much music or OSTs have you done so far to date?
Track count.
If we're looking specifically for OST, so soundtracks specifically.
Track count in total would be around 50-ish songs, which I've done. Some games haven't been yet released since 3 years, so still in development, long development, but definitely gonna keep you posted up on that. But yeah, around that ballpark.
Yeah. So it's only one currently not released. Was it 50
Oh no,
tracks for...
most of them.
Okay, most are
unreleased.
unreleased. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the same time, considering working with unreleased games as well, how does that make you feel when it sounds like you've been quite early in the process of the game itself? It's like one common thing that I usually tend to hear from composers is that they're getting smacked in like the last month, like, oh, you have a month on you and you want to provide all these tracks and so on.
It's a blessing and a curse, I guess, because I've worked on some games which, for example, change direction at a certain point, and we've already solidified the body of work, musically speaking, and the game suddenly changes direction, and the brief needs to be tweaked, and so it's kind of that's the curse about it. The blessing is you get to enjoy seeing the development process and be part of it and give your input as well, and people respect your input as well. How do sounds work in, because I think developers should include audio professionals very early in the projects as well. The fact that some studios still invite them very late is definitely not the way to go, because audio is mostly regarded as we'll figure it out. We have sound banks, it's gonna be fine. But in fact, it's a very important puzzle piece.
Yeah, it almost falls flat when utilizing these like last minute resource or fixes, so to speak.
Yeah, and it will always, more often than not, fall back.
But considering like how you work as a person, not Persian, weird things to say. No, but considering how you work, like wouldn't you feel like you would be a good fit as a composer like late in the project as well, like this trial by fire?
No, absolutely, I could absolutely do that, as long as it's probably easier at a certain point, because the client knows what they want. So it's easy to identify elements and identify what is needed in the project. Because if you're early in development, which is nice again, but there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of maybes and ifs, and you have to shoot in the dark a lot of the times, and hopefully something will stick. Because the person doesn't know what they want so early. And can only see it when it's there. Which means after the third version, they're like, oh, actually, I don't like this one. My initial brief. Let's try something else. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It is what it is. In the end, it's a client that kind of chose and chooses what happens with the project as well, of course.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
but considering a little bit more, we're only generally been talking about little instrument, a little bit about the video games and so on. When it comes to genres, like how wide are you in a genre? Are you more like, oh, I only do rock genres, only classicals, or are you more like, I want to do everything?
I'm kind of in the everything category, but of course, I have my own limitations. You know, I even consider caramel dancing, you know, at a certain point. So I'm kind of broad in that degree, but I guess it all boils down to the main instruments I play, some synthesizers, obviously new wave, and you know, a lot of 80s stuff and post-punk and guitar stuff mainly, even like cheesy rock sometimes.
Okay.
You know. Never metal.
Never metal.
Never metal, I know.
God dang.
Very, very, very seldomly. Like, old hair metal.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's my jam.
Nice. But have you ever gotten like a client asking for a soundtrack of any kind, and you're like, oh, no, I don't do that kind of genre, or do you feel like, oh, let's take the challenge?
So far, I haven't I haven't been there, but I guess these clients were always aware of what I could do and what my style is. So, you know, they didn't ask me to play the clarinet live. You know, so we always had these things already ironed out from the get-go. But yeah, it happened that I played either synthesizers on some soundtracks, and a lot of soundtracks had live guitars on them and electric guitars as well. So it's not just orchestration, it's not just, you know, I'm happy to, you know, combine all these elements.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, when you work, do you usually tend to work with real instrument, or do you also do a mix with sound libraries and so on in order to?
I do have a basement. I despise templates. I know that a lot of composers use them, and they religiously kind of refer to the templates. But me, because that's my process, I completely get away from them. Because I start something new, I start something from scratch, and the fact that I build all these tracks manually, it takes me to the cerebral process and approach to building the structure of the song. So, what does this song need? And I take out all the instruments. If it's orchestra, if it's percussion, I don't want to have anything preloaded. I have a massive whiteboard in my studio which I use like madman.
So you actually draw.
I try to make notes before I even start. I have to make a mental picture of how the project will look like, kind of. So yeah, I try to. Afterwards, I make a structure, and I try to almost exclusively incorporate natural instruments. And I'm actually quite lucky because I have I'm part of this music instrument library in Glasgow called Music Broth. Shout out to Music Broth. I've been a member with them for like 2 years, and I'm always renting out weird instruments. Anytime. I just got a violin for this piece. The composer panel piece as well, and a massive conga, which I spent the whole day tuning. I didn't even use it, but hey, I had it. You know, so I got these auto harps, these weird percussion instruments, these a guitar, you know, like. And I have this huge library of music at my disposal, and a lute, for example.
It's like not common instruments that like
exactly.
a generic or average Joe utilizes.
And
or could utilize.
imagine just buying them. So no, you just rent it out. It's like a library. It's amazing, and it has done me very well in terms of creativity.
It sounds amazing to just have that possibility, though.
Exactly.
But how do you feel about like taking out an instrument that you don't know much about? Like, is it fun to experiment with and learn? Because usually when I talk to other composers, they usually, I need a cello, but I'm not a cello player. I could learn it, but in order to play it good, I need X amount of time. Like, how do you feel about like renting an instrument? Would you rather play it yourself instead of like getting another third person in that can actually play it, that have played for multiple years?
For me, it's just as easy as having breakfast, right? I mean, that's how I started. That's how I learned. I got a guitar. I paid a lot of money for it, and I didn't know how to play it. But hey, here I am. So, I take the same principle and go forward with it. So it's actually rejuvenating. Whenever I take a new instrument home, I'm like, yes, okay, here we go. It's fun to know how they work and to learn how to use them, even if it's just like articulations, and even if you not end up using them at all. It's just very fun to kind of be able to express yourself differently through a different medium,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love to hear about these bits and pieces because everybody else who's listening in on this can't see the smile on your face when you're talking about this, because I can thoroughly see the passion that goes into this. Like, it feels like you're a kid on Christmas when you're talking about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of a kid on Christmas.
I can almost like see it in front of my eyes when you get home with a new instrument, and like it feels like it relates your passion for music just by exploring and educating yourself manually with these new instruments that you haven't used before.
I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. Yeah, and that's the thing. It rejuvenates your own passion and your drive, because doing the same thing and working with the same instruments all the time it can be very daunting. It can be very, like boring at times. But you introduce this element of surprise and what's gonna happen. This like adrenaline rush. Yeah.
I have kind of 3 more questions that I think that we can cover. Maybe that we talk like 15 minutes with just these 3 questions. But the first one is, considering that you have this library that you can go and get, which is considering all the different instruments I have gone and rented, which one has been the one that surprised you the most from a musical perspective? Like, was there some instrument that you were like, whoa, holy crap, it was super fun to utilize, it was easy to use maybe? Or it made this like really unique sound that was like super interesting?
Yeah, actually I have one, the conga. Right?
That you never recorded.
Exactly. I mean, never recorded for this panel.
Oh, okay.
But spend the whole day retuning it. But the conga, right? So if you tap it lightly with the thumb and have a condenser microphone really close to the membrane, you lightly tap it and you tune it down, obviously, and you have these almost rumbly, bassy, warm sounds, which sound very human, very very warm. And if I coupled that with in some projects, instead of using hard drums, and obviously turned it up and kind of put it in the spotlight in the project.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, playing it unconventionally and just extracting an element from that conga, which is that boom, boom, and using it in a project as something in itself.
Yeah.
As a massive bass drum, for example.
But considering the size of a conga, for me, when I'm thinking about conga, I'm thinking about the congas that went to the Donkey Konga game.
Oh,
so they're really small.
No, the massive ones.
So it's a really big one. We're talking about like 50 centimeters, maybe?
As high as like through your torso, basically.
Yeah, so meter. We're talking about meter.
Yeah,
at
meter,
least.
something like that. Yeah.
Great for a podcast where we're showing with our hands, like,
I know.
about this big.
This
it's
big.
amazing, yeah. Like everybody's just thinking, it's like, does it hold his finger up? It's like, it's a mini one. Mini conga. No, but interesting. When you were talking about rumbling, I was starting thinking about, lightning storms and so on. But then you said human, I was like, what? And then I started thinking about like the noises your stomach makes when it's hungry instead.
There you go.
But it sounded really good that you when you said it became this warm kind of feeling. Like I don't feel warm when I'm hungry. So instead I'm starting to think a little bit more about a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Usually
absolutely.
there's really some serene thing when you can just be with a person that you love and just rest on their chest and just listen to their heart.
Absolutely.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun.
This rhythmical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what I ended up in when you said warm and rumbling and
Oh, that's a very beautiful connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
I dig it. I dig it.
Sounds great. But considering then, like the two last questions, they're kind of interconnected with each other. And I usually tend to love to end my podcast on a positive note. So of course we're gonna do it with the bad one first. So considering when you're working with music and working with projects and so on, what is the most hard thing you have to do within the process of making music on a personal level?
Oofed.
Everything.
Where do I start? Jeez. I guess because of my way of working, I get very passionate and very frustrated easily. And I guess it's not the best way and not the best approach and not the most healthy approach, but it's still mine and I'm going to nurture it. But the hardest thing would be, I guess, finding that missing puzzle which brings it all together in the end. It's a bit conceptual. I know it's a bit vague, but
it all depends on the project as well. 'Cause sometimes it could be like an instrument that was missing. Sometimes it could be like a bridge that was missing. It's like, I really have a great chorus and I have a really great start, but the bridge is not there.
Exactly. It's like tying all these pieces together, which makes it sometimes very difficult. And to make it make sense in the context, basically. Yeah, I think that's the most difficult part. Making it make sense. Because in the end, you have to craft something which has to be tied onto something. Yeah.
Have you figured out any sort of process in order when you end up in these situations that you can, let's say you can take a step back and try to analyze it from another perspective? Do you have any sort of process there?
Yeah, I wipe down my board and rewrite everything.
I remember.
So yeah, kind of. Because if you're so far into the development process, then you can absolutely you know where everything is. You eat and breathe and you know that project. So I wipe everything down and start again. Clean ears, have a walk or whatever. You know, get some distance from it, which is very important. And once you have a clear head and some detachment, then you come back and you might find some clarity.
Okay. Yeah. Have you ever tried like jamming a little bit? I hear that from some composers as well, that of course taking a step back, you know, take a breather, take a walk and so on is very effective from a lot of, but I also heard like some, let's jam a little bit and just get into a flow that you were talking about earlier in the podcast.
Well, I don't work in that sense, especially related to these briefs, right?
Yeah.
Client-based briefs. I take it very technical, and I basically have it all in my head.
Okay.
So I don't really play around much. I kind of know what works and what doesn't. It's just a matter of, you know, finding it. Jamming, never. Maybe like picking something up and, you know, probably diddling it. But as soon as you hear the sound, then you don't have to jam. You just know that will work, you know, because you know the harmonies already. So, you know, it's just about finding the right instrument to port it with. And yeah.
Okay. And then we'll go to the positive one. What is the most fun when it comes to composition that you really love and adore?
When something works and you're like, yes, You know, like that moment hits, you know, it's like not that different, right? And
You hit the jackpot.
it's not exactly, you hit the jackpot at a certain point. You re-listen for like the umpteenth time, and you're like, for some reason, that little change there made everything glued. Everything works all of a sudden, and then you'll hear from Kim's studio, you know, like a scream of relief and joy, and you know that's the best part about it. The pride you feel when you finish something and you're proud of it in that moment, and like, yes, I've done it.
I'm guessing like every time you're releasing something, you have some sort of pride all the time. But I'm guessing from this experience where you have the best kind of like feedback from it is when you've gone through this struggle first for quite some time. It's like similar when you play a Dark Souls game. Like you're struggling with this boss. Yeah, you died. You composed, tried at least.
You tried.
Yeah. It's like new thing. Kim Studios, you tried.
You tried. Hey, come on, at least you tried. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I'm guessing you need, in order to have the best kind of moment for yourself as a composer to date, you need to have that struggle to actually have that adrenaline rush too.
I mean, I guess that's my middle name as well.
Yeah.
And again, it probably ties back to my chaotic workflow as well, and the fact that I thrive in chaos, you know, and unexpected situations, technical aspects as well. So, yeah.
But it sounds like it really brings like a unique perspective on music creation and composition, in my opinion. There's so many people coming in, it's like, oh yeah, I've been going through school, university, oh, my parents were this, my parents were that, oh, family, friends, and so on. Oh, we did bands and so on. But I hear like a guy, he's been struggling and like working his way through a whole lot of things. And when something comes, like a feat of strength pops up and you go through with it, you don't, like when your guitar broke, you didn't stop playing music.
Yeah.
You did something about it and continued instead. It's like a lot of people might just give up from what I hear. And unless they have something else that can come in and like, no, you shouldn't. You should keep going.
Some can't afford it.
Some can't afford it either. No, but I'm from what I'm hearing, is that you are a very unique character when it comes to composition, and I love that part. That's why I think this podcast is amazing to that sense, because we get this honest and we get these perspectives.
Oh, warms my heart, honestly. Oh.
But do you
no,
also...
honestly, thanks so much for your kind words. Yeah. It means a lot.
No, but even though I haven't listened to all the different soundtracks that you have, like just listening to your story, it brings warmth to my heart, because you are who you are today as well. And we've been like playing ball a little bit. I mean, figuring out why you work so well under stress.
There you go. Yeah, true.
No, but I don't have any further questions surrounding this for this time. I would love to have you back when you release one of your soundtracks and we can actually dive deeper into the process.
Absolutely. It's going to be very soon. We have, with Squad Studios, which I'm an audio director for, we're planning on releasing some titles in the near future.
Yeah.
So hang back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
That is awesome. But for other people that might want to enjoy your sense of chaos, how can they get in contact with you if they have any questions, for example?
I've got a website. You'll find all my socials there as well, and all the projects I'm currently working on. It's razvankim.com.
Yeah, and we will. I will also provide links and everything in the description of this episode as well. So it will be easy to find you.
Amazing.
Yeah. Do you have any social medias that you have open for people?
Yeah. It's everything on my site.
Yeah.
Just take your pick.
Name your poison.
Yeah. Choose your destiny.
Yeah. Fight. Fatality. Like ending in chaos in this podcast.
Yes.
No, but in all honesty, it was an honor having you. Finally.
Honor's all mine, honestly. Yeah.
No, but it's been great. I loved having you on the podcast. And for everybody else who's listening in, this was episode, what number was it? I think it was 39. Me and numbers, people know I'm not that best. I need to have them like written down. But we're sitting here in a small meeting room, my phone is on the side. I have nothing else to see than Kim and his bottle of Coke. No, but in all honesty, this was episode 39 about you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure.
And with that said, I want to thank everybody for listening in on this week's Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast. With that said, do take care and see you all guys next time. And with that, we're back into the present day. As you can see, my voice is so much better right now than it was when I recorded this. Constantly talking and enjoying an event like that is just too much pressure on the voice, and doing this like the last day of everything also put a little bit of pressure on the vocal cords there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Razvan Kim. It was super exciting to do that one. He was such a pleasant guy to talk with. And if you like this episode as well, you can find other episodes of this one, not of this one, but similar to this one, just by searching for Gameable Audio. You find it also on our homepage at videospelsklubben.se. Pages you can find it on Spotify or in your closest podcast app. Great places to find. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias as well, either on Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find us there. Just giving a follow, commenting on some of the pictures, liking, helps others to find the podcast and also get more spread on this glorious of the podcast. But if you want to feel like you want to give a little bit extra to the podcast, you can support the podcast for future content and quality upgrades. But also in the end, when I don't need any more money, we will work as a fund for future composers. So think about becoming a Patreon. Our current awesome backers that we have today is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Links where you can either buy and support Razvan Kim that we talked to in this episode, you'll find those in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. And the next episode, we're going to talk, or it is a pre-recorded episode with Bernardo Vidal at the Nordic Game Conference as well. So I hope you will enjoy that one as well as much as you liked this episode. This podcast music was, as always, composed by the amazing Thord Myrdal. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and I want to give a special thank you for joining in, listening in. And with that said, have a good one, and see you guys next time.